Hello, everyone. So welcome. Thanks to everyone for coming out tonight. I really appreciate it. Those of you that don't know me, I'm James Herbert. I'm the president of UNE, and I couldn't be more happy to see so many people out here tonight. So a warm welcome. And thank you very much to the musicians. That was very cool to have some nice music. Yeah, start off the evening. So it's my pleasure tonight to welcome you to a joint event that is co-sponsored by the President's Forum at UNE and the Makeshift Coffee Hour event. So thank you very much, and I'll introduce our speakers in just a moment. I thought that today, being Columbus Day, it would be a fitting occasion to acknowledge and recognize both the wonderful blessings and the atrocious horrors of the Columbian Exchange, and also to remind everybody that we sit tonight on traditional Wabanaki land. So having said that, everyone has recognized, I'm sure, the breakdown of civil dialogue and civil discourse in our society, and you don't have to go very far other than turn on the news to witness that. This is reinforced over the years, more and more these days, through social media. We all tend to live in our social media bubbles, and it's reinforced by 24-hour cable news. And so many people watch the same news channel and look at their Facebook page, which just has these algorithms that reinforce the very perspective that you already hold. And rarely do we give ourselves the opportunity to have real dialogue with people who disagree with us, who have a different point of view. And tonight's event is precisely around that purpose. It's to try to bring together different points of view and to reimagine the art of meaningful discourse. And that doesn't mean avoiding hard questions, avoiding robust dialogue. In fact, it means exactly that, but doing it in a civil and respectful and productive way. So tonight's event actually takes place as part of a National Week of Conversation that is sponsored by the National Conversation Project. And there are 125 different events like this going on this week on issues ranging from immigration policy to our event on gun control to even last week's Supreme Court nomination hearings. So all of these events aim to bring people from different points of view together to have meaningful dialogue. We're very happy to do our part here at UNE in furthering that cause. So colleges and universities can facilitate these kinds of discussions, and in fact, I submit we have a special role to play in fostering these kinds of discussions. I wrote an op-ed piece in the Portland Press-Herald some months ago where I argued that universities really are part of our core purpose is to serve as a marketplace of ideas. And a marketplace can only function well if there's diversity on the menu, if there are various points of view in that marketplace. And so that's what we're about. And that means having spirited, robust discussions, but in a respectful and civil way. At UNE, we have several projects that further this idea of a marketplace of ideas. We have our Center for Global Humanities lecture series. We have our Merrill lecture. We have the Bush lecture, various high-profile lectures. But what struck me in coming here was that we didn't have a place that really fostered the kind of interaction. Most of the lectures, you listen to someone give a lecture, you have a Q&A period, and that's wonderful, that's great. You can have audience participation, but you don't really have that chance for a dialogue. And on the other hand, formal debates with Oxford rules and that kind of thing can be very stilted. So last spring, I initiated a project called the President's Forum. And the idea behind the forum is to have a moderated conversation between people that have different points of view on an important topic, often a controversial, timely type of topic. And we had one event already in the spring, and tonight will be the second event in that series. So tonight, we're going to talk about guns. Guns are arguably one of the most controversial topics in our society today, and there's something about which pretty much everybody feels passionately on one side or another. And indeed, for some people, the topic of guns forms the very core of their personal politics. There is no other single issue that is more important to them than guns. And so it's a very important issue to have, and I think I'm very pleased that we're able to have this conversation tonight with two people who have somewhat different points of view on that. So our first guest is Maine Senator Eric Brakey, who represents the people of Auburn, New Gloucester, Poland, Minot, and Mechanic Falls. A libertarian Republican, he was first elected in 2014 at the age of 26, making him the youngest state senator in the United States. Recently, the Bangor Daily News described him as one of the legislature's most absolute gun rights supporters for championing Maine's constitutional carry law, which allows law-abiding citizens to carry a concealed handgun without a permit. As chairman for the Health and Human Services Committee, Senator Brakey is also known as a leader on issues of welfare reform, healthcare freedom, and medical cannabis. Please join me in welcoming Senator Brakey. Thank you. Our second guest is Maine Representative Charlotte Warren, who serves House District 84, which includes Manchester, Hollowell, and West Gardner. She's the chair of the House Committee on Criminal Justice and Public Safety. Prior to her election to the legislature in 2014, Ms. Warren was mayor of Hollowell. She's also a member of the Hollowell Food Bank Board of Directors and is a trustee of the Greater Augusta Utility District. She is the owner and principal consultant for Charlotte Warren Consulting Services, which provides grassroots support on policy campaigns as well as political and communication strategy guidance. Please join me in welcoming Representative Charlotte Warren. And finally, I'd like to introduce our moderator for tonight, Craig Freshley. Working as a volunteer, Craig has organized 20 makeshift coffee houses where people of different points of view, typically liberals and conservatives, come together to better understand each other's views. At these coffee houses, there's always live music, free food, and drinks. To date, these events have drawn more than 1,200 attendees. As a professional, Craig has facilitated more than 3,000 meetings for nonprofits, community groups, and governments. He's written a book titled The Wisdom of Group Decisions and has worked for Maine State Government and the Maine Development Foundation. Please join me in welcoming Craig Freshley. So the first thing I'd like to do, or the last thing I'd like to do before handing the mic over to Craig, is I'd like to offer a small token of appreciation to each of our presenters tonight, our two panelists. These are, so yeah, so I figured I'd give you the gifts beforehand because that way so what these are is, these are crystal lighthouses, and here on the Biddeford campus, our iconic feature of our new Rippich Commons building is a lighthouse feature, and the lighthouse, representing a beacon of light, represents the university's quest for truth, which is in the end what we're really all about. And so thank you very much. It's a small token of our appreciation for you coming tonight. And so I'm going to turn it over to Craig, and let's have a spirited and civil conversation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, President Herbert. Thank you. So we're going to talk about guns for the next couple hours, but we're not here to debate guns. We're not here to argue with each other. We're not here to persuade each other or change minds. We are here to understand each other and understand the issues. 15 years as a meeting facilitator, I have learned that each and every person that holds a strong political view holds that view for a reason, a good reason. We don't make this stuff up. And it's when we fail to understand people's reasons for why they believe the way they believe, that's when conflict happens. That's when we make assumptions about each other. That's when we demonize each other and we think of somebody with different views as against us. Well, we're all Americans. We're all humans. It's not us versus them. It's just us. If we have any hope of getting along with each other peacefully, of governing ourselves peacefully, I think it works well to really understand where each other is coming from. Disagreement is okay. Disagreement helps us come up with new solutions, but when we disagree based on false assumptions, when we don't try to understand the other person's reasons for the disagreement, that's when conflict occurs. And that's why I started doing these makeshift coffee houses as a volunteer. I am very grateful that this evening we have partnered with the President's Forum. We're going to do a little bit of a forum, we're going to do a little bit of a makeshift coffee house, but our entire purpose is to understand each other and understand the issues. Here's how it's going to work. First, I'm going to have a conversation with these two. I'm going to ask them some questions. I might ask them some follow-up questions. They might ask some questions of each other. And our purpose is to understand what has formed each of their beliefs and why they feel so strongly as they do about guns. And then I'm going to come down there with the microphone. And I'm going to ask you some of the same questions. I'm going to ask you, why do you believe what you believe about guns? And you can tell your story. I'm going to ask you to speak from your experience. What in your past, what in their past has caused them to believe the way that they do? I'm going to give you a chance to ask some questions of them and ask some questions of each other. But you know what? When we have this full group discussion, I'm going to take their microphones away, and they are going to be one of the crowd. We are all going to be equal and have this discussion. And I know that I'm not going to get to call on every hand that gets raised. Thanks for understanding and accepting that right now. There's a lot of people in this room, a lot of things to say. But after we have this full group discussion, we're going to strike up the band again, and we're going to give you a chance to talk in small groups, to ask questions, to tell your experiences, and to understand each other. We'll come back together as a full group, and before we adjourn, we'll give each of our honored guests a last word, and President Herbert will close the forum by 8 o'clock. That's our plan. Let's get going. First question: what is right and what is wrong with how we handle guns in America? I'm going to ask Representative Warren to tell us your answer to that question. What's right and what's wrong about how we handle guns today?
So what do I think is right? I think what's right is that we have access to the Second Amendment. I think what's right is that our founding fathers decided on the Second Amendment as part of our history, as part of our country, as part of something we believe. As a Mainer, as somebody who was born and raised on a farm in Pittston, Maine, and has lived in this state my whole life, I'm thankful for the Second Amendment. What do I think is wrong? We act like it was handed down by God Himself, and that's not the case. What do I think is wrong? It seems to me we're in a place in our state and in our country where if you say one thing about it, you're either this person or that person. That's just dumb, right? This idea that because you think that you can have a conversation about something, you are either 100% pro or 100% against. It just goes against everything we know about each other. So that's what I think is wrong, for one. The second thing I think is wrong is that children shouldn't be afraid to go to school, and parents shouldn't be afraid to send them there. That's wrong. So I don't know how long you want me to go on for. I want to share the stage here with my friend Eric. So those are sort of my initial gut reactions about what's right and what's wrong.
I get it, and that's very helpful. We've heard the Second Amendment is something that is right, and you're thankful that we have that. But what's wrong is that we are too black and white about labeling each other, either for or against. And another thing that's wrong is kids got to be safe going to school. That's a great start. Thank you very much, Charlotte. Let's give you a chance at those questions. What's right and wrong about how we handle guns today?
Well, certainly. All right, it's working. Well, first of all, I do just want to say very briefly, thank you for having me. Thank you. And I know that Representative Warren and myself have some disagreements on some of these issues, but I know that I would consider her a friend, and we've actually worked together on many other issues in the legislature. So I think that what was said earlier about needing to have opportunity for civil discourse is very important. Just because you disagree in one area doesn't mean that you're adversaries. Well, you may be adversaries in that moment, but we're all still human beings, and we're all on this boat together, so we might as well try to make it work. But what is right and wrong with the Second Amendment? Well, first of all, I will say the Second Amendment, certainly, the Constitution, I think, is a very good document, and it certainly wasn't written by God on high on stone tablets or anything. But when we look at our Bill of Rights, including our Second Amendment, it was based on eternal principles. Principles that we as individual human beings have certain natural rights that are intrinsic to us by our humanity. Whether those rights come to us from God or from nature, it's just our nature as human beings, we have those rights. Those are rights to life, to liberty, and to own property, or life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, as is written in our Declaration of Independence. Now, certainly the Constitution and our founding documents were written by people. They can be flawed. Certainly there were many flaws in our Constitution, and that's why our founding generation had the foresight to create an amendment process to amend the things that were wrong in our Constitution. But our Second Amendment is not one of the things that are wrong. And, you know, I think that when it comes to, when I hear a lot of the proposals that I hear for gun control, I think that a lot of those proposals come from very sincere places. I think people recognizing real problems that we do have in this country when we see acts of violence taking place across the country that can be devastating. I think it comes from a sincere place of wanting to remedy those problems. The question is it the right solution for those problems? Where I think it goes wrong is I think that when we trust and we think that government can protect us, government by itself. There's the old saying, well, maybe it's an old saying to me, but when seconds count, police are minutes away. You know, our law enforcement officers, our men and women in blue, you know, if there was, heaven forbid, if something were to happen, someone were to come in here today and want to do harm to us all, the one thing we would all be hoping for in this room, at least certainly I would, is that I hope that there is a law enforcement officer or an armed, trained, someone competent with a firearm ready to defend us against that person. Otherwise, we're all in trouble. And if our plan is to just hope and pray that something's going to happen, we're in trouble. So that's why the right to defend ourselves. If we have a right to life, we have the right to defend ourselves. And if we have a right to defend ourselves, that means we have the right to the means to be able to defend ourselves. And the Second Amendment, it's our right to keep and bear arms. So I don't want to go on too long, but I think that it is a very fundamental component to maintaining a free and a safe society.
Right. Very helpful to hear that. Let me ask you this. Is there something about current gun laws or gun policy that you think should be changed?
Yeah, I would repeal a lot of the gun control laws that are in effect. Because, you know, so for example, you have a lot of places in our state and our country that are designated gun-free zones.
Right.
But putting up a sign doesn't stop someone who is a criminal intent to harm people from walking into that area and doing harm.
Right.
What it does do is effectively disarms law-abiding people who would use firearms for self-defense.
Okay. So I understand you, and I'm going to hear from you in a minute, but let me just continue with the senator here for a second. Right to happiness, right to life. A person should have a right to defend themselves. But there's a lot of people in this room that are probably thinking, what about those who have been the victims of mass shootings? Don't they have a right to life? Their right to life was taken away in an instant. And what would you say to the person who feels that way, or the person who knows somebody whose life was taken away in an instant because someone else had easy access to firearms?
Yeah. I would say I want to stop that from happening as well. The problem is that prohibition itself as a policy, whether we apply it to firearms or anything else, prohibition does not work. So for example, you know, we can look at some other problems where we've tried to apply prohibition as a solution. You know, the opiate epidemic. Heroin has been illegal in this country for a century, and yet we have more of an opiate epidemic in this state across the country than ever before. If we could simply ban something and say people are not allowed to have this and therefore it will go away, then our problem with heroin would have been solved 100 years ago.
Right. Is there anything in your mind that can be done to stop or at least lessen mass shootings, particularly in schools?
I think the thing that has to be done is, well, certainly there are a number of things we can look at. Certainly there are mental health components to what takes place. Those factors are complex, and you know, we could have a whole panel, we could have a whole night just discussing mental health issues in the country. But ultimately, at the end of the day, if someone is truly motivated and someone wants to do harm to other people, they will find a way to do it. We've seen it. We've seen it in other countries. In other countries where maybe people don't have access to firearms, we see in Europe that people driving vehicles into crowds of people. Right. We see in the Middle East people blowing themselves up. I think we focus a lot on the tool that is used rather than understanding the underlying problem. And ultimately, as far as securing our schools goes, I think we have to look at how do we secure our schools. I mean, 92% of all the mass shootings that take place in this country take place in gun-free zones. Our schools become targets. Many times people who are looking to commit harm to others seek out places where they know people are vulnerable. Mm-hmm. So the question is, what can we do to harden our schools and make our kids safe?
Okay. So you would address mental health issues and focus on the gun-free places such as schools. I'd like to give you a chance to respond to this question that I asked the senator. Are there anything about our gun laws or regulations that you think we should change right now? What do you think should change about our current laws and regulations?
Well, I would start off by saying I don't think the way we improve the lot we're in is by just saying we can't do anything. So I don't think that it makes sense to say, oh, we're never going to stop it, so we just shouldn't do anything about it. And that I think it feels to me like, we do a lot of, well, you're never going to be able to actually protect people, so we shouldn't even try. And I'm not saying that's necessarily what you're saying, but I want to just say that that's what it feels like to me.
Yeah.
It feels to me like, again, sort of where I started, we hesitate to even have the conversation.
Right.
So let me just answer your question.
Yes, I want to hear.
What do I think are some things? I think that as Senator Brakey said.
You can call me Eric.
Okay,
it's all right.
thank you.
I'll call you Charlotte.
Okay,
Craig.
good,
All right.
perfect, thank you. One of the things that we all know that we need to talk also about mental health. That's absolutely true. The problem is when we try to talk about mental health in a policy discussion, we're gun grabbers again. That's what it feels like. So I want to talk about both. I want to talk about that possibly the discussion is a little bit of both. Maybe it isn't. I think it probably is. I think probably common sense says that it's a little bit of both. So one particular example is this idea of, let's say that we have somebody that's having a mental health crisis, and we know it. And with a lot of these mass shootings, we have known it. Somebody has known it. How do we give police a tool with judiciary being involved? Somebody has to go in front of the court to temporarily take somebody's gun away. If you know that they're a danger to themselves or a danger to our society, I would say that we, by the very fact that we don't live out on an island by ourselves, we do have a government that's responsible to, in some ways, protect us. We have a social contract that we all pay into. We believe in fire stations. We believe in safe roads. So we do buy into, in some ways, to the fact that government's role is to protect our children, is to protect our schools, et cetera, et cetera. So again, I say, I'm here in the middle space, the space of let's have a conversation. We can't just go, nope, it's never about the guns.
Right.
We have to talk about both.
Can you, Senator, imagine an instance where the government should grab a gun away from somebody with a mental health issue?
Certainly, if they've had full due process and have been convicted of a crime.
Okay.
I think that is the only standard under our republic, which is designed to protect our rights as individuals. That is the only standard under which you can take a person's rights away if they are convicted of a crime. I think the danger is if we have a blanket statement that, oh, you have a mental illness, therefore you have this right taken away from you. Well, where does it end? We start having two classes of people. We've got one class with certain rights and another class of people with a different kind of rights. And without due process afforded to you as an individual, without being accused of a crime and having an opportunity to defend yourself in court, we start to tread down a very dangerous road there.
That's the very clear standard. If somebody has a mental health issue and they have been convicted of a crime, that would warrant the government taking away that person's gun. So that begs the next question: how does the government know who has been, if the gun is in the hands of such a person with a mental health issue and convicted of a crime? Would you favor background checks in all instances where anybody buys a gun anywhere? Isn't that a way to assure ourselves that guns aren't put in the hands of people who are mental health affected criminals?
If background checks were effective, but they're not. They're very easy to sidestep.
Oh, okay.
I mean, frankly, all you need to do is all you need to do is find another person to go purchase the gun for you. In fact, I forget the FBI term for this, but it's common enough that the FBI has an actual term for this.
Okay.
So the problem with the universal background check standards, at least in many in the Second Amendment community, is one, it's kind of one of those things that gives you an illusion of safety without actual safety because they're very easy to sidestep. But two, it creates the expense of the background check is borne by the person who's receiving the background check. So regular law-abiding people who've done nothing wrong have to pay extra for that on themselves. And further, there's also a concern that when you have a universal background check system, you're creating a record. And by creating a record, you're potentially setting up the framework for a gun registration, which is something, considering the long view of history where we can see in other countries that the first step of confiscating firearms has always been registering firearms. So I think understandably a lot in the Second Amendment community who are very wary of anything that would look like a gun registration.
Okay. Do you have a point of view on gun registration or background checks that you'd like to share?
Well, first I want to just back up 1 second just to clarify the way that I think my comment was sort of repeated back. I was very clear in that I did not say if somebody has a mental illness. I
apologize. I didn't mean to.
Okay, just want to be really
that.
clear because that is not my stance at all. My stance is that if somebody is in a mental health crisis and we know that they are posing a danger to themselves, and that's a piece that I really want us to make sure that we pay attention to, is suicide in Maine and suicide across our country. That's a big piece that we should be thinking about when we're talking about guns. And so what I said was, if someone is in a mental health crisis where they may pose a threat to themselves or to someone else, we should be able to go to a court and get a temporary restraining order and protect that person, protect the person that they're in a relationship with possibly, and protect the children in their school, protect the people at the casino, protect the people at the gay nightclub, protect people. When we know that someone poses a threat to themselves or to other folks. That, to me, is common sense. Today when I was thinking about guns and sort of my relationship to guns, when my father taught me about how to hold a gun the first time, the most important thing was gun safety. You never pointed at anybody, Shar. You always, even if you think it's loaded, unloaded, excuse me, you act like it's loaded, right? We all, when any one of us taught our kids or teach other kids how to handle a firearm the first time, it's all about safety. Well, that safety should continue. That conversation about safety shouldn't just stop there. And certainly when someone is not in a state of mind where they are safe or someone else is safe, we should talk about safety. That should be a part of the conversation.
Right. Yep. I understand what you're saying. I think, it's not that we shouldn't be allowed to have guns, but safety should be paramount. Yeah. Let me ask each of you to tell us a little bit about why you have the beliefs that you do. You told us that you were raised with guns. Your father taught you how to hold and handle a gun. And you've told us that you're in the middle. You have, a bit of a balanced perspective. You believe in the Second Amendment, but you also believe in more gun regulation. I'd like to hear more about how your beliefs got formed. And you too, Senator, I'd like to hear from you about why it is that you feel so strongly in favor of the Second Amendment. Maybe we can ask you to go first, Charlotte.
Okay. Well, I think first of all is just the piece that I shared with you already. I grew up on a farm in Pittston, Maine. We always had fresh venison. My father got 3 moose permits while he was alive. In fact, I will drive home from tonight. I will finish packing my coolers. Very early in the morning, I will head to camp. I'm still here because we were doing this tonight. My whole family is on a moose hunt. My youngest niece got her first moose permit.
Can I just tell everybody, we pretty much scheduled this forum around Charlotte's moose hunt.
Yes, exactly.
Just so you know, you're on the
Exactly.
road tomorrow morning to go get that moose.
As soon as I can,
Yeah.
yeah. My brother called me today and said, can't you just skip that? Come on, we got stuff to do. So that's how I was raised. I've always known a family where that's a very big part of our tradition. Every fall, my father, who's since passed, would go to Moosehead, where our camp is, and he would spend a week up there by himself, bird hunting and reading and cooking and, just hanging out. And I'd come up on the weekend and hang out with him when I got time, either when I was in college or when I was first teaching. And we'd drive along, we called it heater hunting, and we'd drive along bird hunting. And I remember my dad, I was very young, and him teaching me what a partridge eats, by opening up its craw so I could see all the leaves and all the stones and understand how they digest. So I tell you all that to give you a sense of that's how I was raised. And also, one of my best friends in the world grew up in Newtown, Connecticut. And that's her hometown. And as proud as I am of my hometown, Pittston, Maine, I grew up, on a farm, and I'm very proud of my heritage. She grew up in Newtown, Connecticut. And she looks back, her entire town, every memory about that town is completely changed because of what happened there. When that date rolls around, I know that the first thing I'm going to do is call my friend Kim. When another shooting happens, I know that the first thing I'm going to do is call my friend Kim, because she's back on the ground in a puddle. And she has a little child that she has to send to school every day, who's 9 years old. So those 2 things maybe that's why I can be in the gray, because those two things get to exist at the same time. I'm going to go tomorrow, and I'm going to drive around in a truck, and I'm going to hope that a moose comes out, and my little niece gets her first experience. And we're going to feed our very large family on that. Right? And also, we can have a conversation about something is wrong when over 20 kids or people are gunned down. And we can't talk about it without being labeled something. And so, that's kind of
That's where you're coming from.
where I
Yeah.
come from.
Thanks for sharing that. That's really great. And you, Eric, where are you coming from?
So I could pick a number of things, but I guess I would say, for me, primarily, it comes as someone who's tried to be a student of history. The shot heard around the world that sparked the American Revolution happened when the British government in Massachusetts, of course, we were part of Massachusetts at the time, came and tried to confiscate the people's firearms. Why were they trying to take the people's firearms? Because if the people were unarmed, there was very little they would be able to do to resist the British government. That was the start of our revolution, and if the American people, the people in the colonies, had not been able to stand up and resist and fight back, then we would still all be British subjects today. But that's just our history. We can also look at history across the world. We can look at when open societies have become closed societies. We can look in examples like Germany and Russia and China. And there are many commonalities we can point to in terms of what took place in these societies as they changed, as the power shifted from power in the hands of the people to power in the hands of various totalitarian governments. There are many commonalities we can point to, but one of those commonalities is in every single case, the people's firearms were taken away from them because a people who are armed are not a people who are so very easily ruled. And that's why our founding fathers were, that's why our framers were so adamant about enshrining the right to keep and bear arms in our Constitution. It's because they knew that that was about maintaining the balance of power in society. They knew that because the end result of gun control isn't an elimination of firearms in society. It's a concentration of firearms in the hands of one group, the government. And if all of the guns in a society are in the hands of one group, if the government has all the guns and they're pointed at the people, that's not going to remain a free society for very long. It might not change overnight. It might take a generation. But there will come a time that the people find that they themselves, that we are no longer citizens, we are subjects.
It's a very compelling argument. In your mind, the right to bear arms protects the people's independence against their own government.
Yeah, it certainly it protects our ability to maintain the balance of power in society,
Yeah.
and it also as one of the generals in World War II on the Japanese side said, there was no point in invading the American mainland because there was a gun behind every blade of grass.
Reason number two, the people right to bear arms protects us against foreign invasion.
And it also protects us in our own day-to-day lives against anyone who could seek to take our lives away from us.
It protects us against home invasion, right? Yeah.
Certainly.
Yeah. So, Eric, I went to school and I studied the history and the first shot, at Lexington and Concord, but I didn't come out of studying history with the same conviction that you have. I'm betting you got it someplace else also. Was there somebody, when was the first time in your life, and maybe it was in a classroom, but when was the first time that you really decided you believed this? Or was there someone in your life other than a teacher or a place other than a classroom where you got this belief?
You know, there's a lot of ways I could answer that, and frankly, it's if I were to, I would say as around the time I was graduating college, it's kind of the 2010, the Tea Party wave. I came to realize that Washington D.C., our federal government, had really screwed up this country, and both parties did. And I came to realize that there is this continual, gradual erosion of all of our liberties, not just our Second Amendment, our Fourth Amendment, our freedom of speech. We could go through the entire Bill of Rights. There's this continual, gradual erosion of all of our liberties. And I ultimately believe, for me, it's a core conviction we all have these natural rights. I have the right to do anything I want with my own life, so long as I'm not harming anyone else. And you do too.
This is the libertarian
Absolutely.
non-aggression principle, right? You called yourself a libertarian.
Yeah, well, in libertarianism, they call it the non-aggression principle. You have my right to swing my fist ends at your face. The moment I hit you in the face, I have violated your rights and I'm not allowed to do it. But simply owning a firearm, using a firearm for self-defense, you are not violating anyone's rights in doing that. So you have every right to do so. It is only the moment that the exercise of your rights violates someone else's rights that there is a reason for the government to get involved and protect the other person.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that with us. I'm going to let you say anything you'd like to, and then I want to ask you what you think about guns, and we're going to carry on this conversation. Yes, anything you want. Do you want to say anything? You don't have to, but if you want to say something before I walk out there. Can we give a round of applause to these folks? That was awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was really great. We are off to a terrific start. Now, in a moment here, I'm going to ask one of you to put up your hands. I'm going to ask for a volunteer to tell us your answer to this question. What's right and or wrong about how we handle guns in America? And I might ask you a follow-up question. I might ask you, like I did with these folks, why do you believe what you believe? Where does that come from? As we have our conversation here, I want to keep in mind some of these typical ground rules that we have at these makeshift coffee house conversations. We're mostly about listening. As I said in the beginning, we're not here to change each other's minds on these topics. We're here to understand the topics and understand each other. I'm asking you to speak from your personal experience. I want to know not just the theory, the law, or even the science. I want to know why you believe what you believe. We're going to try to give everybody a turn. I'm going to ask that you raise hands. No one criticizes. We are not here to blame, criticize, shame, or offend anybody else. That's just not the purpose of this. The purpose of this is to understand each other. I'm being a neutral facilitator tonight, and the last one there says share with others. And my hope here is that after the conversation tonight, tomorrow, next week, next month, you will share with others maybe what you learned here about how people think about guns, but also the ways in which we had the conversation. I'm imagining that we're going to have a very civil conversation tonight. We're already off to a great start. Watch how that happens and try to model and replicate these techniques in your conversations, in your questions tomorrow, next week, next month. Share with others. Is there a volunteer that would like to tell us what's right or what's wrong today about how we handle guns in America? If you wouldn't mind, face the audience and tell us your name.
Good evening. I am Priyal Patel. My belief is that guns really don't matter. Their perspective is meaningless. They're a tool, just like a hammer. You can put a nail in wood with a hammer, or you can chisel ice, or it could be called a murder weapon. The perspective is not the weapon. The perspective is the person themselves. How a person handles those weapons is the determining factor of what's right and wrong. Now, you don't see many FBI agents go into schools and shoot up schools. You don't, because they've been tested. They've been tested to make sure that they can handle this weapon effectively and use correctly, not only to save the lives of others, but of themselves, just like doctors. They're tested. They're made to go out there and do what's right, not because of anything more than their mental ability to go forward in their lifetimes. And that's the difference between who is able to, what I personally believe, is right and wrong about guns.
Are you saying that, let me use the car analogy. A car is a tool.
Correct.
We only put cars in hands of people who have been trained and are qualified to drive a car. Do you think that we should handle guns the same way?
Correct.
Okay, that's what you're saying.
We test people for it.
Right, we
Correct.
test. We test people, and if you pass the test, you should be able to own a firearm, and if you can't
You should.
pass the test, you shouldn't.
Same
Okay.
thing. Yeah.
And, okay, let's just leave it there. Thanks for starting us off. That was great. Let's give this guy a round of applause for starting us off. Thank you. Somebody else tell us, why do you believe, I'm going to go right here, okay? Don't worry, I'm going to get around to as many as I can. Let's hear from you, ma'am. If you wouldn't mind, tell us your name and tell us what's right or what's wrong and why you believe that.
I have a hard time finding what's right now, given society. You can see my shirt. I raised a daughter in 1999. She was in high school, Columbine. I don't know how many mass killings in schools there's been since then. I have a grandson. He's 9 months old. He's going to be dealing with the same thing. That's all I can say.
You fear for the lives of your daughter and other children, and because that fear is so strong, you're a mom demanding action.
Right.
What action do you think we should take as a country? If you were queen and could have your way, what would you do in terms of gun laws?
The first thing I would do is have a universal background check for all gun sales. The second thing I would do, one of our legislators, Senator Mike Dion, tried to put through a red flag law. It was what Charlotte Warren was speaking about. They also called it a community protection order, taking guns out of the hands of people we know are dangerous.
Right.
They're threatening harm to people. They're threatening harm to themselves. It's a temporary order.
Right.
A judge has to order it. Law enforcement wants these things,
Okay.
I think that there needs to be safety education on handling guns.
Yeah.
I think that's gone by the wayside. I think our congressmen and our legislature have to stand up and do something. We
Okay.
can't do nothing. We're killing our kids.
Okay, thanks for speaking up. Awesome. I'm going to go back here. Yeah.
First off, I want to thank Senator Brakey for bringing up the fact that when the Redcoats came here, it was to disarm the people because they wanted to oppress us. The people got together and made the Constitution. Read the Declaration of Independence. We, the people, created a government to protect our liberties and our personal freedoms. And one of the things we had to do is we had to have the ability of self-defense. I don't know about all you young guys, but I stopped being able to run a long time ago. So if I had to outrun any of you, I wouldn't win. Now, if there's 5 or 6 of you, I can't fight you all. So how am I going to equalize the situation? But I want to bring up something else. You can ask me a cool question about this. Trust. You know what trust is? Trust is the most valuable thing on the planet. It cannot be purchased. It can only be owned. You have a government being run by people that may be just as evil in some ways as all the rest of us are imperfect. You want to put your life in the hands of people that are no more trustworthy than if you had ultimate power you would be? So if you can't get trust in the government, the Constitution tells us to have the trust, because the people in government who take the oath, other hand, take the oath to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic, then what happens? Once people lose the trust in the government decides they need to teach us a lesson, like they do in other countries, and not shooting their people because they're not behaving properly. So trust is the reason. The government was formed to protect their individual freedoms, and that's their job. Our job is to trust them to do it. When anybody starts seeing something, we all know, you may be given a line, and you may think something's not right with this person saying these things. You go with your gut, it turns out you're probably not that wrong. So if we all trust the person defending us in a court of law, which may be the Congress, then we have a better belief that we can live up to what the Constitution says we have as individual rights. That's my biggest, I tried to tie together
I
the
get it.
Second Amendment.
But I'm getting that you don't trust your government. Is that right?
No, I don't trust my government. I'm guessing all these people here.
Right.
I mean, I got a daughter older than all of you guys. I'm pretty sure of it. She's 41. I was a teenager when Vietnam was happening.
Yeah.
And I was lied to by our federal government.
Right.
Turned out they were lying to us for a lot of bad reasons. So people say, well, why are you so militant sounding with the government? Because they lied to me when people I went to school with were going to Vietnam and getting killed.
Right.
I have no problem defending our nation and our people and our way of life, but I'm not sure that was a good war.
I get it.
So because of that, I question everything by anybody who has more power than I have.
Right.
And I'm just one old guy.
Right.
And he's got the power to take my microphone away from me. So.
No, I'm gonna ask you another question though, and I appreciate your telling us about your lack of trust with the government and why. But here's the problem. On the one hand, that is a very compelling case for the reasons why we should be able to arm ourselves essentially against our own government. But on the other side, innocent kids are dying in schools. Innocent people are dying in public places. There are thousands of millions of people across our country who are afraid of being caught up in a mass shooting.
Well, I'm afraid of it too, because when I came here, it was on the email that I received at the radio station that it was a gun-free zone. Mm-hmm. Okay?
Right, and this is the most dangerous place for you.
So how about somebody learns about this and they think we're all a bunch of fools and they want to come in and shoot this place up? What I would ask is, if I'm not allowed to carry something that I might be able to defend myself with, what is this institution doing to guarantee somebody authorized with a firearm can defend us?
Right.
Who's doing that? Is there anybody? Mr. President, I'm guessing if they are, they're undercover.
Yeah, there. I can tell you there are some undercover police officers.
Well, it
here.
makes me feel better already.
Yeah, okay.
But what do you think about the trust? On the other side of it, sir, if you lose trust, it can only be earned. If you lose trust, if you
Right.
break trust,
I get it.
like if you've been married twice and you got divorced.
Yeah.
I
Speaking from your own experience,
I married for love, and you know what? They didn't. But anyways, probably was me. It was probably my fault. But I did trust. They'll never re-earn that trust because there's
Yeah.
no reason. It's
I
called
get it.
betrayal. So if the government's going to become perfect, and we can take them at every word they say, because when they say I'm going to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and my number one job is to protect every one of your liberties and freedoms, because you're an American here in this country, you have a right to expect that to happen.
Right.
And I've not seen the government being any more trustful than most of the people I've dealt with. So there's the problem to the Second Amendment.
Okay.
Anything else you want to know?
No, you've been very helpful in sharing with us an important perspective. Thank you. I'm going to try to come back. Hold on.
I'm Jeannie Hay. What's right and wrong with guns? And I'm really trying to listen and learn and understand, so thank you, everybody. I can understand people feeling the Second Amendment is a right. I can understand them wanting to defend themselves, of being afraid that someone might come in and shoot us up and being able to defend themselves. What I have a really hard time understanding is why that trumps everything else. If we look at how many times the government, and we've heard that we don't trust the government, and I know the government is very flawed, I'm a political scientist, but the government is not shooting up classrooms. People with guns are shooting up classrooms. The government is not perpetrating the murder rate, with some exceptions of police shootings. Communities awash in guns are contributing to the murder rate. The idea that we can't have any restrictions on gun ownership, and I heard you, Senator, say a registry is the beginning of taking away our guns. I hear that, I understand that. We register our cars, we register our children at school. I'm registered at the Gap. Like, the idea that Like you said, we could run, if I didn't have a gun, I could run people over with a car. My car is registered. Why would we privilege the most lethal weapon to be free of registration? And finally, the Second Amendment, wanting to defend ourselves, hunting, of course, all comes, could all seem reasonable, but our gun conversation isn't reasonable, whether it's how many bullets you can shoot, how many people you can kill with a single trigger. Nothing seems to scale, and as the representative said, even talking about it gets you labeled as somebody who's anti-American, and that's very frustrating.
Thanks for sharing your frustration.
Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to hear from somebody under 30. We are on a college campus, folks. Let's hear from some college students. Yes, ma'am.
Hi. So I have a very similar background. All my uncles, my stepfather hunts. I myself am hoping to get my archery permit next year. But like with anything, there's multiple components to this issue. With, the expenses that were mentioned with doing the background checks, with safely storing and maintenance of firearms. And we need to maybe stop looking at singular parts of these and look at them all together. So that making responsible gun ownership easier for people.
Are you concerned about a registry?
Not particularly, because again, we register things so that we can have records, we can have statistics, so we make sure that everything's in order.
Right.
So say like our car is stolen, we have a register so people can go and be like, oh, it's for whatever reason somewhere in 2 towns over, and we can recover it and make actions towards righting a wrong.
Right. Registrations are a method. Thank you very much for speaking up. Thank you. A registration is a way that we can hold people accountable. Be it a car ownership or owning a Gap credit card. Yeah. Someone else. I'm looking particularly for younger people. If you want to weigh into this conversation, we would love to hear from you. This is a rare opportunity to hear voices from people that we don't often get a chance to hear from.
So, one of my stories is I'm actually a survivor of sexual assault, and I support the idea of having guns because if I had that, I would have felt more safe in my situations that I was in, and I wouldn't have to fear as often as I do that my doors are locked, I have a big enough dog to protect me, or that I could have a situation where I have something big enough to take care of someone who is larger than I am.
Right. Thanks for speaking up. It's really helpful to hear that reason for wanting to own a gun. Someone else.
My name's Rebecca Hanscom. I feel out for you because at 10 years old, my father grew up in Acton, Maine, small town, all about guns. You know how that goes. He put a 30-30 in my hands and said, shoot. And he laid out the rules for me. He said, you point it at the ground, you don't point it at anyone else. You protect yourself, you care for yourself. And it's something I feel passionately about because I know that if I was in the situation where someone was to personally attack me, I could defend myself, and I'm not scared. I'm not scared of a man, I'm not scared of a woman, I'm scared of no one that comes near me because I can protect myself, and I do have that right. So for someone like me, it's hard to watch people, they want gun registrations, and they want gun control and all of these things, but it's what happens if you see someone that was apparently with a mental illness, or you were accused of coming up with, oh, they tried to hurt me, or they try to do this to me with a gun, but it's when does that line stop? At what point does it turn into accusations rather than facts? So for me, I don't believe in gun registration, and I don't believe in gun control, because I think that as a young female in a country where I'm very, I guess, available for attack, I think that having access to a gun and being able to have those things and have those privileges in America makes me feel more comfortable in living in my society.
Awesome. Thank you for speaking up. Very helpful to hear. I want to hear from you in a second, sir, maybe one or two more, and then we're going to ask Bob and Jim to play some more music, and we'll all have a chance to get involved in this conversation. But I want to recount something here. I am telling a little story. We had another forum like this on guns that I moderated, and partway through, somebody stood and spoke, and they said, you know, I'm figuring this out. We're all afraid. We're all afraid of guns. We have different reactions to that fear. One reaction to being afraid of guns is, I want to have a gun. Another reaction to being afraid of guns is, I want the government to take away your gun. But what we have in common is fear of guns. And I'm just naming that commonality, and also naming that people's reactions to that fear are pretty legit based on where they've come from. That's what I'm hearing. Tell us where you come from or what you believe about guns.
My name is Aviv. I live in Portland, and my views on the relationship between gun ownership and freedom, I'm going to base on as far as I know, the most comprehensive comparative analysis of how democracies fare, which is the economic research unit, is done by The Economist. And there are dozens of countries in which democracy performs better than in the United States, and in none of those countries is there an individual right to gun ownership. And in many of those countries, you do indeed have to register your gun. And so to say that registering your gun is going to lead to totalitarianism is to confuse cause and effect.
Okay, your belief comes from what you believe to be sound empirical research, where the data simply does not support this notion that our democracy will be stronger if we allow gun freedom, right?
Well, I would say that I also don't want to confuse
Cause
correlation with causation, but
Right.
the correlation is in the opposite direction. If one were to confuse it,
Right.
it does go in the opposite direction,
Okay.
based on the data from the Economic Research Unit.
Right.
And
Okay.
as one historical point I want to point out that was made about Nazi Germany, Hitler confiscated guns from Jews and other undesirables. He didn't do it for the entire population. In fact, for the rest of the population, he actually liberalized the laws, making it easier for one private citizen to sell guns to another private citizen.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you for that perspective. Yes, thank you. I know that there's many other people that want to talk, and we're going to have a full group conversation a little bit more in a few minutes. But right now, I'm going to, as soon as I'm done talking, I'm going to invite you to do a couple things. First of all, you could come forward and ask a question of Representative Warren or Senator Brakey. I'm going to ask each of them, maybe Representative Warren over here, maybe Senator Brakey over there somewhere, but I hope they'll stick around, and I hope you'll feel free to talk with them directly and ask them your questions. Ask a question of somebody who spoke. You want to ask a question of that guy? Go ask him a question. You want to ask a question of one of these two? Come ask him a question. Ask questions of people who have different political views than you do, because our purpose here is to understand each other's political views. Another choice you have when we strike up the music here and I put down the microphone, I have put some signs around the room. And you might want to mingle with people who want to talk about the same thing. That sign over there says limits. If you would like to talk with people about limiting the age for gun ownership, the number of guns that somebody should be able to own, the type of guns, the place where carry should be allowed and where it shouldn't be, not to push your point of view, but to understand other points of view about limits, you might get yourself a cup of coffee or a cookie and mingle over there. If you want to talk about kids in schools, kind of over here. If you want to talk about training, that's over there. The sign in the corner there, I think it says registration. If you would like to ask people questions and have a discussion about that, registration. This sign says Second Amendment, and that sign says mental health. So you have a lot of choices. It's a coffee house. It's a forum. I'm going to put down the microphone, and I'm going to call your attention again. And I don't know, maybe 20, 30 minutes or so, we'll have a little bit more full group conversation. We'll end by 8 o'clock. I would like to hear from anybody else who wants to tell us why you believe what you believe about guns, or if you have a question for one of our guests, or maybe somebody who's spoken already. This is your chance. This is where you can understand each other's perspectives. Please.
Thank you. Thank you. My name is Kathy McFadden. I live in York. I think what you said was really interesting, that we all come to this perspective from fear. Fear drives some of us to believe maybe less guns is better. Fear drives others to believe that they need to arm themselves. I guess what I would really like coming out of this is that we remind ourselves that facts matter and that the data does not necessarily support the idea that more guns make us safer. In fact, the data is to the contrary. So I'd just like to offer that and hope that people understand research.
If your objective is to be safer, the data shows that more gun regulation makes us safer.
Yes,
right.
it does. Yep.
Right, but I suspect that, I'm going to take this back from you, thank you. I suspect that that's not necessarily everybody's objective. Your objective is that we preserve these fundamental principles of independence and be able to protect ourselves against foreign invasion, against our own government, and against home invasion. Right, I'm putting words in your mouth a little bit, but in this person's mind, that objective of preserving individual liberty is more important than the safety objective. Am I right about that? Let me take the mic to him, because this is a very interesting dichotomy.
So with much respect, because I respect that everyone here, I believe, at least from the conversations that I'm having, is coming from a very sincere and genuine place. I think that there are a lot of different studies that can point to different things, and oftentimes it depends on how it's being, how the data is being gathered. But I would say, there have been rankings of the safest states in America. Maine is ranked the safest state in America, actually, by U.S. News and World Reports. In fact, 4 out of the top 5 safest states in America all have constitutional carry laws. And here in Maine, so not only are we the safest state in America, we are ranked the #1 safest state for the lowest violent crime rate per capita. And I think you can go to some other places in our country. You can look at places like Chicago and New York. Chicago, I think, is a particularly good example of a place where a lot of these policies have been put into place. But at the end of the day, it is those who are committing the violent crimes aren't following the laws. They're not following the laws against violent crime, and they're not following the gun laws. And what you have there is a situation where law-abiding citizens have been effectively disarmed, but the criminals on the streets have not. And so that creates a very imbalanced situation where people are not able to defend themselves, and you have, in many neighborhoods in Chicago, has been described, I think, somewhat, accurately as a war zone. So I guess, so I would say, not only do I think that preserving individual liberty is important, I also go back to what Benjamin Franklin told us, which is those who give up a little essential liberty to gain a little temporary security will lose both and deserve neither. And I think that's the devil's bargain we make. If we give up our liberties in the pursuit of a sense of security, we may find that we don't end up with either one of them.
Okay. All right. Thanks for clarifying that. You want to weigh in on this? Let's hear your point.
I just want to clarify. I think that data is data is data is data is data. Research is research. It's true. It can be used in many different ways. We can both choose a piece of data or a piece of research and try to use it in our own way. But we should all make sure that we are very skilled in the way that we read research and data. So I personally needed to say that.
Right. Okay. Thanks for pointing that out. Someone else want to tell us your point of view and why you believe what you do? Or if you want to ask a question, we'd like to hear that too. Yes.
My name is Samantha. I was actually waiting in line to talk to the senator. Yeah, it's okay. I do just want to start off saying, like, I agree with the Second Amendment and the right to bear arms. If you have the right to live, you have the right to defend yourself. I did grow up in Texas for about 5 years, and the first time I went to my best friend's house, her dad showed me their gun closet and had about 20 different guns in it, ranging from shotguns, pistols, and rifles. But the main issue that I had with it was that it was never locked. It was always unlocked. So I think my main concern around gun control is how can we better secure our weapons? Because they didn't know me. They don't know their neighbors. If people know that their gun closet's always unlocked, they could come in, possibly take their guns, or people who shouldn't have them. So I was just curious what your opinion was on that.
You want to ask him what his opinion is on
how we can better
okay, sure. Quick answer, and then we want to hear from some others.
So I would say that, of course, you know, as Peter Parker's dad said, with great power comes great responsibility. So there obviously, if you're going to exercise your right to keep and bear arms, you need to exercise that right responsibly. And I'm very much a big supporter of encouraging people to participate in training. In fact, I think every single responsible gun owner it says that you shouldn't be using a firearm if you don't know what you're doing. You know, it's like you wouldn't use a chainsaw if you didn't know how to operate a chainsaw. What would happen? You might cut your arm off. You know, the same thing with a firearm. It is a tool. It's a dangerous tool, and it needs to be respected as such. And so, as far as kind of what people should do in terms of having gun safes locked up, yeah, I think it's probably smart to lock that up, particularly if you have children in the home. Do I want to create a government, police force that's going into people's homes to make sure that they're doing this? Well, I think that's a bit of an overreach. But I do think that culturally, we need to do what we can to encourage people to exercise firearm responsibility.
In the best of all worlds, there would be just an attitude, an ethic that everybody knows that every gun should be locked, ammunition should be stored separately, et cetera, and the government wouldn't have to regulate that. It would be self-regulated.
Hi, how's it going? So I'm kind of stuck on the idea of fear. I had a lot of people bring it up behind me. Personally, I'm not very afraid of anything, but I know it's a problem for a lot of people. And I was thinking about like the shooter situation. If someone came into this building right now, I know we have some undercover police officers or something in here. But I have grown up with guns my whole life, have extensive experience, not as much as police officers, obviously, but I don't feel confident in my ability to handle a situation if a shooter came in here to shoot up the place. Like, I wouldn't be confident pulling out a gun and addressing that situation. So I guess my question is, why do we always escalate to deadly force? So like, we had a girl talk earlier about having a handgun on her person to make her feel safer. You could also use bear spray or a taser. That would disarm someone just as quickly as a gun. But why deadly force?
Actually, if there's anybody in the audience that would like to answer that question and explain to this person, why do I need a firearm to protect myself against an aggressor, wouldn't it be okay to have a taser or bear spray?
So I think part of that is sort of self-explanatory. If somebody comes in here with a gun, pepper spray is not going to do a whole lot before they could fire off a couple rounds. If you look at the school shootings, a taser wouldn't have done much. It doesn't have the range of a gun.
Well, let me interrupt. In the school shootings, a gun didn't do much, right? Can we name an instance where a mass shooting
Yes.
recently?
So
We can-
in is it Sutherland, Texas? There was a shooting at a church in Texas where some of the churchgoers chased the man down and shot him with an AR-15.
Right. So it does happen, and your argument is that they couldn't have chased him down and neutralized him with a taser or anything less than a firearm. Yeah, that's the answer. Okay. Other topics, other points of view. If you have a point of view that has not yet been expressed in this forum, and you'd like to tell us what you believe, we want to hear you.
Thanks. My name is Tori. One thing that we haven't talked about tonight is the fact that, we have talked about the fact that guns are tools, but we haven't talked about the fact that there's almost no regulation around safety. So we talk about having 20 guns in a gun locker that's not locked up. We have keys to our cars. They are unique to our car. I can park my car and lock it and go away for a while and know when I come back I have access to my car, and hopefully no one, unless they're going to break in and hotwire it, have access to my car. This is an industry that has fought regulation. Our government has done nothing about protecting us through making sure we could do simple things like you could have your thumbprint so that you could access your gun and use it. So my question is, I am a proponent of the Second Amendment, but I think we have gotten wildly, wildly off target. And no one's talking about the fact that almost every other industry in our country is pretty highly regulated, and the gun industry is absolutely not.
What is so special about this industry? That's kind of the question. Why are we so resistant to regulate this industry in ways that we regulate others? I'm happy to go back up here, but I would actually rather hear from somebody that we haven't yet heard from. Are you willing to answer this question? Okay, let's hear from you. I'm going to try to come over there in a minute, okay? Hold on.
Hello, my name is Robin. I live rurally, so I'm one of those gun owners that actually has a gun and keeps it, well, it's unloaded, but I keep a bullet because we have coyotes. I live about 2 hours from here. I drive every day. My gun cabinets, plural, we have key codes on our gun cabinets that we have to put in a special pattern. I don't have young children at home. I wish we had grandchildren, but we don't. Maybe next year. But as far as regulations, some of our guns are registered, some aren't. Some of the special guns, like an AR-15, that one is registered. I enjoy going target shooting. I enjoy going skeet shooting. I don't want my guns taken away.
Is that the difference with guns? Is that why we are more hesitant to regulate guns than any other dangerous tool is because we are more afraid that the government's going to take away our
I
guns?
don't want the government involved more in my life than what it's already involved in my life.
Okay.
I have gone to training, to safety training. As my gun club, it's mandatory. If you want to shoot there, it's mandatory that you attend
Right, you do these
training.
things voluntarily, yeah.
I learned how to shoot when I was 8 years old by my daddy. And I went to training through Boy Scouts with my brothers.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay, thanks for speaking up. And
way of life in Virginia. That's just how we grew up.
she said a way of life in Virginia. It's just how we grew up. I know that I'm being a little pushy here and a little quick, it's because we don't have much time left, and I want to hear from you. You can sit down if you like.
We had like a little debate over there in the mental health section, and I just, it's hard. Like, I'm all about like understanding other perspectives and other people's sides and viewpoints. And I don't know if it's just me, but like I'm finding it really hard to understand how like regulating and kind of like not controlling in like a negative way, but just like regulating the use of guns and the use of like AK-47s and like automatic weapons and all these things that shouldn't be in communities and shouldn't be in like certain spaces. I don't know like how that infringes upon the rights of like other people in terms of like Second Amendment. And like it's just, I don't know, like it's hard for me to understand. And I think like a lot of things, like we tend to, when we're talking about like certain subjects and certain things, we tend to kind of box it in. Like the so-called gun debate, whatever you want to call it, like is interconnected to so many other things in this country. Whether it's mental health illness or whether it's healthcare, whether it's like issues in like inner city communities, like the senator was talking about, like those things are all interconnected. And I don't think that they should be like separated. So
this is the same central question being expressed in a different way. Why are guns so special? Why do guns have this special place in America that we are unwilling to regulate them to the same degree that we do other things? Can somebody help this woman understand that? She told us she doesn't understand. Is there somebody that can try to provide an understanding to this question? What's so special about guns? Why do we single them out?
I have to stand.
You can sit if you like.
Oh, okay. I want to stand. So I actually agree with you completely on a lot of issues. I think it's the direct fact that it's in the Constitution. It's literally the Second Amendment in our Constitution. It comes right after freedom of speech and freedom of liberty and everything that we hold so dear as Americans. So talking about registering cars and everything.
Cars aren't
you
in
mentioned this before. It's not directly in the Constitution. It's so...
Cars aren't in the Constitution, chainsaws aren't in the Constitution, but guns are.
It's
but
like
let me ask
the
this.
second one.
Let me ask this. If it wasn't in the Constitution, would you fight for it to be in there? Is it important to you? Would it be important to you if it wasn't in the Constitution, or is it all about that?
No. Personally, it's not something I want to fight for.
Okay, but it's in the Constitution. And
But it is.
That's meaningful to you. Yeah.
To me, personally, no. I think...
Okay.
Personally, I think the Second Amendment is a little outdated, but it's called an amendment for a reason because you can amend it.
Right.
But yeah, it was created in a time where our founding fathers, you could refill a musket in 2 or 3 minutes if you were really good.
Right. Okay, but you're providing. You're providing that answer that it's the reason it's special is because it's in the Constitution. We've got time for one more comment. I'm sorry that I hate having to make this choice. Yes, it's you.
Oh, someone said my name. Thank you. I'm Naomi, and I think I speak for a lot of college students when I say that I came in here and I had. Are you having a conversation? Okay. So I came in here and I really didn't have an opinion on gun control or rights. I grew up in New Jersey, suburban New Jersey. I've never seen a gun in real life. And that kind of changed when I met my boyfriend, and he lives in upstate New York on a farm, and he knows a lot of people with guns. And the way he explained it to me is that it's a way of life. And that's not bad. It's built into our foundation of our country. And I think that's why it's so important to us. It's, I'm kind of shaking. But I understand why you guys feel so strongly towards it. And I think the main thing for me is that I just don't understand why. I understand why it's so important. I just don't understand why we have to go through all these traumas and all these things. And we still wonder, can I keep this? Can I have this? And I feel like it's not so much of a... it's like, is the government going to come and get me? But is someone else going to? And we're all distrustful, and it's hard. And I'm shaken, and I don't know what I'm trying to say. But I just think I speak for a lot of people when I say I don't really know how I feel.
Yeah.
I have a question for both of you. So for someone like me, for a voter, a new voter like me, what should I think about all of this? And from my standpoint of really not having that much experience, not having a really big opinion on this, is this something it's something I should care about, and I want to, and that's why I'm here. But yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for speaking up. I appreciate it. Our President's Forum / makeshift coffee house is coming to an end. I'm going to give each of these two a chance to answer that question if you like, or say a brief last word, and then we're going to ask President Herbert to come up here and close the forum. We're just about done here. We're going to let you go first, and then we'll let the Senator go. Brief closing comment.
So just to quickly answer that question, I think keep your ears open and listen to all sides. Be open to information without fear. It's interesting that we talked a lot about fear tonight. Some people might believe that on all sides of this issue, fear plays a big role, and I would agree with that. Fear of loss of something that people hold dear, your hunting tradition possibly, owning guns possibly. But we shouldn't be afraid, I don't think, to just talk about it. We shouldn't be afraid to listen to other people. I'm not afraid that when my friend Eric and I sit down and have a conversation in the cafeteria, that somehow he's gonna do some voodoo magic on me and I'm gonna end up thinking what he thinks.
If
right?
only.
Right? It's okay. We might disagree, but I can still try to listen and not have to try to label him as something. And I think that conversation needs to be equal part talking and listening. And I think that everyone here has done a really good job at that tonight. So thank you for the opportunity. It's refreshing.
Thank you.
So I'll say, of course, the question was, what should you think? And, I can't tell anyone what to think, but I appreciate everyone being here. And I'm truly, genuinely, I appreciate, I was talking with folks from groups that I don't necessarily agree with on this issue, but we had very good, productive, civil conversation. I think that that's very, very much needed and needs to take place. I think, sadly, too much across the country, especially lately, including on college campuses, thankfully not here, but we've seen a breakdown of freedom of speech. We've seen a breakdown of civil discourse. We've seen a breakdown of people listening to and hearing ideas that they may disagree with, but engaging and having productive dialogue. And I think that this is very healthy, and I'm glad we're all here doing this. But the final thought I will say, just on, to make my closing case for the Second Amendment, is I really, for me, it all comes down to this basic idea that each and every single person in this room, each and every single person on this planet, we're all individual human beings, and we have individual rights. We have the right to life. We have the right to our liberty. We have the right to pursue our own happiness. And so long as we're not doing harm to other people, no one else has the right to curtail our rights. We can make choices that other people disagree with. Frankly, I know many people make choices I disagree with, and I say I'll try to persuade them to make a different choice. But so long as they're not hurting others, they have the right to make that choice, whether that's with firearms, whether that's with something else, so long as they're not harming other people. And if we have the right to life, we have the right to defend our lives. And if we do not have the right to possess the means of defense, then we really do not have the right to defense, and we really do not have the right to life. So I'll end it there. I want to say thank you to everyone for having us here today, for everyone participating in this dialogue. It's very welcome and very appreciated.
I'm going to ask President Herbert to come up here just a moment, but before I hand the mic to him, this is my thank you to you. Yeah, clap for yourselves. Go ahead. This is great. Yeah. Because this was really a very good discussion tonight. I'm sorry that we couldn't hear from every person, get every question answered, every point of view expressed. But I hope you agree with me that this was a good opportunity to learn and understand each other's political views. If you want to take action or do more to understand each other's political views, we have given every one of you one of these cards as you walked in. There are some tips here for how to have conversations, and at our website you can find a page called Ready to Take Action, and there's some specific things you can do there. If you would enjoy making a financial contribution to what we're trying to do, we would much appreciate that. You can do that at the website, or you can ask me how to do that. We are trying to have more forums like this in more places. I'm very grateful to you, Annie, for inviting us into your forum to have this today. I suppose the last thing I want to say is just encouraging you to continue to have conversations with people, even whom you disagree with, and understand where they're coming from. That is what, in my opinion, is going to save our democracy. So thank you.
Thank you, Craig. Thank you very much. Representative Warren, Senator Brakey, thank you all so much. And thanks to all of you. I really appreciate you coming out. And just let's give it up one more time for all of our panelists and Craig. Thank you. So, and I would really just echo what both of our panelists and what our moderator just said, which is that we need to continue this conversation. So on this particular topic, I feel like we just scratched the surface. We just began. There's so many issues that we didn't talk about. How many people know about the Heller Amendment, or the Heller decision, excuse me, on the Second Amendment and what that means, and the Australian experiment, and there's just tons of things that we just barely have scratched the surface. But these are complex issues, and at least we began the conversation tonight. So what I hope is that you all will continue this conversation amongst yourselves with your friends, your fellow students, your neighbors, and continue the conversation on this topic, but on many other topics as well. I'd also like to say that I'm very, very proud to be able to serve at an institution where we can have these kinds of conversations. And I can tell you, there's a lot of college campuses across this country where you're not able to have these kind of conversations today. And that's really thanks to all of you that have allowed us to be at a place where we can have these hard conversations. So please keep it up. And finally, that if you enjoyed tonight, please spread the word. Tell your fellow students and your friends and neighbors that we're going to continue having these President Forum series. As I mentioned, we had one in the spring. This is our second one, and we'll look to do another one in the spring. And I'm very open to your suggestions for topics that we might explore. So this was on guns tonight. There's a very long list of topics that we could talk about, right? And I'm sure there's no shortage of that. But if you have ideas for a topic that you think would make a good President's Forum, and you have ideas even for speakers that you think might be helpful, please be in touch and let me know, because I'd like to hear from you. So thanks everyone for coming out, and safe travels home.